You did it? Mm-hmm. Good evening, everyone. Hey, y'all. It's Thursday. Looking to have some amazing conversation with you all today on LGBTQ plus identities. Remember to like, comment, and or share. All right, so we're going to go ahead and get started.
People. Hey, everyone. Hey, y'all. Hey. So this is going to be super interactive. Please ask questions. We are going to try our best to answer the questions to the best of our ability. Hey, Kenny. Please like, love, thumbs up if we're saying something, you're vibing with it. Thumbs up, like, let us know you're there. And we're going to jump right in. So, in thinking about where to start this series, I think it's been really helpful to understand about these identities. When I do talks all over the place, a lot of people say that they are not sure what to say. They're not sure about the identities. There are new identities every day. The young folks keep the identities growing and going. So we want to make sure, hey, Diane, we want to make sure that we really just start out our series and how we feel with education. I think education is the key. I think knowledge is power, and I really love teaching about identities and learning. So I wholeheartedly believe anytime that I teach, I always learn something. So please ask questions, really be a part of this conversation.
Don't be shy.
And don't be shy, because this is the forum to do it. If any place was the place, this is the place. So how we start, thank you, Davey. Hey. So how we start is literally talking about how you're born. How you're born. So when people are born, they're either born with a sex or gender. Wondering who knows which one. So baby is born, doctor says it's a boy, it's a girl, which literally means it's male or female, and that's your biological sex. So sex is what you're born with. You don't control it. And the doctor may say it's a boy, it's a girl, based simply upon your genitalia. And so even sex is not binary. So there's not just male or female. Yes, Kenny. There's also intersex. I'm not going to go into it a lot, but intersex is the third category of biological sex. So if a person is intersex, they either may have ambiguous genitalia, or they may have chromosomes and hormones that are different. And so sometimes they find out later in life, maybe around puberty. So that's sex. And what we do as a culture and a society is we really emphasize gender on our kids, all the way down to a gender reveal party, right?
Very popular right now.
Very popular. So it's a boy, it's a girl, right? And so if you're having a boy, what kind of things align? And if you're having a girl, what kind of things align? So we really start gender roles quite early in terms of our kids. So that's sex. So kids are born with sex. Then around the age of 3 to 5, you begin to think like, I'm a boy, I'm a girl. You kind of feel something inside of yourself that matches what the world has told you. So the world says, like, I'm a boy, I'm a girl, then what goes along with that? And so at some point, kids. So when you hear about a child being transgender, what I'll talk about shortly, know that it exists. So a child can know that they feel one way, even if that way is directly different than what their genitalia is and what they were told they are. And that is gender. So your gender is in your brain, how you feel like you are. So I know when I think to myself, I know I feel like I'm a woman, right? And that's in terms of man, woman, or being trans.
And I just want to add that sometimes as parents, when a child is born, male or female, we generally will, push towards one or the other. Everything is blue for the boys. Things are pink for the girls, dresses for the girls, trucks for the boys. So we begin to even push gender onto them very early. And that's something that, can cause complications for kids very young if they're born as male, but yet they feel that maybe they're female, but yet they're being told they can't play with dolls, they can't touch makeup. These different things cause conflict in a child's mind if they feel one way, regardless of how they're born.
Yes. Look at you, babe. She's so great. So we are going to do definitely, I think, an episode about family. Family is really important to us. So we are moms of 4 kids together in our blended family. And so we want to do an episode on family and kids and how these things play out in kids. So stay tuned for that. So moving right along. So you're born with the sex. At some point when you're young, you decide what your gender is. And then at some point you decide like you're attracted to a person, and that's your sexuality. So sexuality is who you love or whom you're attracted to, and you cannot see a person's sexuality. It's also known as sexual orientation. So when you are in a room full of people, you can't look at a person and be like, yeah, you're straight, you're gay. So sexual orientation is who you love. It's really invisible. It's not something you can see. When people see Shore and I together, I think sometimes they think we're sisters,
yes,
believe it or not. But people don't automatically assume like we're in a couple. And I'll be like, oh, my fiance. And they'll be like, where's he at? She's right there. Right. And so that's heteronormative like world we live in. So we'll talk about that later too. But sexual orientation is important because it's who you love. And sexual orientation goes beyond just the binary being straight. That means being attracted to the opposite sex or gender, and being gay, being attracted to the same. So there's multiple kinds of sexual orientation. And Shore is going to tell us about our first kind.
Yes, so we're going to first look at bisexuals. So a lot of people automatically assume that if a person is bisexual, well, let me first start off. So a person who's bisexual means that they are attracted to men and women. So some people always misunderstand it, and they say that some bisexual people are confused. They just want to have a bigger pick of the portion. They want to pick on both sides. And even some cases, some people say you need to pick a side. If you're attracted to males or attracted to females, pick one. Don't try to go in the middle. So, for example, if a female is dating a male at that time, that doesn't per se make her straight, because at that moment the female is dating a male, because later on she can also date a female as well. So a person would be considered bisexual when throughout their life they have dated males or females. So the myth, so we just want to debunk the myth that these people aren't confused. These people aren't trying to be greedy, that they have a natural desire of being attracted to male and females. So don't judge bisexual people, y'all, if y'all know some who are.
And it's such a double standard attached to bisexuality, so I wanted to bring that into the atmosphere. A lot of times when women say that they identify as bisexual, people sexualize that and think it's so sexy and fun. But then a male says that he's bisexual, it's like, no, you're just gay. If you have sex with a guy, you're gay. And so I would like to say that's not true, that people are bisexual regardless of being a woman or a man or anything else, and that we should just respect people's identities and who they love.
Thanks for the love. Thanks for the love.
Yes, thanks. So really important. So there's so many other types of sexual orientations. We would be here all night if we go through them all. But I wanted to bring into the atmosphere pansexual, which is under what we love umbrellas and flags in our community. So pansexuality is not being attracted to pans. It's actually the ability to be attracted to people regardless of their gender or their sex. So, for example, pansexual folks would date someone that's transgender. So let's stop and talk about what it means to be transgender, because we definitely kind of missed that. But it happened right around that gender time. So remember I talked about if a kid age 4 is proclaiming that they're a boy, but they were biologically born a female, then they would be what we call transgender. So being transgender is when your gender identity in your brain is directly opposite than how you were born at birth. Yeah. And that can happen as a child or as an adult. So a lot of times people don't believe in the trans identity as a child, but it's definitely real. So so many amazing stories out there, and families who have allowed children to transition and live life in their most authentic self. So for transgender folks, really what it means is that a person is transgender. So it's like a tall man, so a transgender man. So I hear a lot of people say the transgenders. So transgender is the adjective that describes a person. So you will always say the transgender man or the transgender woman, and think about that. And so pansexual folks would date someone that's trans,
yes.
right? And so, for example, I'm going to use you for example, honey. So if I was straight and I dated women, but then I found out that Shura was actually biologically born a man, would that matter to me, right? And so for some people it wouldn't matter, because literally if you're identifying, as a woman and it is what it is, it wouldn't matter to me. And so pansexual people, actually a slogan is hearts not parts. So they love people for who they are, not what their gender or their sex is. And then lastly, I wanted to bring up asexual people, because a lot of people get confused about what asexuality is. It's a very misunderstood community. I love the ace community, and these are people who don't have any sexual attraction. And it doesn't mean that they can't have romantic or emotional relationships. It means that they are not sexually attracted to people. And so for some people who love sex, they would be like, well, who does that, right? People identify that way, right? There are some people that just don't have sexual attraction, and they do have relationships, they do get married, they do have kids. And so the asexual community is a community that definitely needs love and understanding, and are mostly invisible when you look at the acronym of our letters.
Absolutely.
That was a lot.
That was a lot.
Does anyone have a question?
Questions. Anyone have any questions? Feel free to post your questions.
Naima, hey, boo.
Hey, make sure y'all like, share, and we're going to be on YouTube also. So subscribe if you haven't subscribed to our YouTube page as well.
Right. So I also wanted to bring up the word queer, because we did not talk about the Q. And so a lot of people ask me why I identify as queer. Honey, can I ask you how you identify?
I identify as lesbian.
Okay. So a lot of people have different ways that they identify. I know when I first came out, I just was like, yes, I'm a lesbian. Like, that was for me. But what I felt like is when I would tell people I was a lesbian, I'm going to go back to queer, I promise. But when I tell people I'm a lesbian, for me, it limited me to like only being able to look at women. So I would be like, oh, that guy is hot. And they would be like, I thought you was a lesbian. I'm like, I dated men for 10 years, so I can say if a guy is hot or not. And so I went through a transition of being lesbian, identifying as gay. Gay is always easy. People are like, how you identify? I'm gay. And then over the last 4 years, I've identified as queer. And to me, I love the word queer because it's basically like you identify this definition is sacred to everyone. So my definition of queer is that my attraction and relations is very fluid. And so I don't particularly identify with being just lesbian or just gay or any of those. And so for queer is an understanding of who I am, and basically who I love. And so I really love the word because it doesn't put me in a box. And usually people that identify as queer don't necessarily identify with the other letters. Q can also mean questioning. So Davey said, are people transphobic if they wouldn't date a trans person? I can't say if they are transphobic, but what I can say is that there is not enough education around what it means to be trans, and that people usually sexualize being trans. So it's not about a person's genitalia, what parts they have between their legs. It's really about who they are as a person. And so you have to be comfortable with yourself. I think homophobia in general is about insecurity and uncomfortability with yourself. And I think that if you will fall in love and get to know a person and then find out they're trans and realize you can't be with them because they're trans, is something internally that you need to check. And that's just how I feel.
Awesome.
You might feel different.
No, I totally agree with you 110%.
So,
I just would like to add, I think, like she said, a lot of people don't understand. So I think one of the biggest things is just having that conversation with a person, because we personally know people who a woman or a few women who may have identified as being straight, but she met a trans man and was able to have relationship with that person. So I think it can depend, or just maybe a preference as well. A person may just prefer not to date a transgender person. So I think it's both. It's about having the communication. Of course, that can be challenging as well because you don't want to communicate that all the time. to everybody. You want to be selective, who you discuss it with, but also keeping that topic, ready for a person that you're sexually attracted to and looking to build a relationship with them.
Yeah. And all trans people are the most amazing human beings in the world. And so I really think that to deny someone the opportunity to be loved because of their trans identity is just unfortunate for that person that won't do it. And so thank you, Naima. Being cisgender, cis meaning Latin, so CIS gender is the word that's opposite of transgender. And so instead of making it seem like folks that are not transgender are normal and that transgender people are not normal, right? There was a word blanketed called cisgender, and cisgender would be a person like us. So we were both biologically born female and we identify as women. And that's what it means to be cis. So thinking about cisgender as those things matching and transgender as those things not matching, right? So your gender and your sex is what I'm referring to. And so basically, if you read books written by trans folks, they'll say like cisgender people talking about folks that are cis, right? So that are born a woman, born female, and identify as a woman. So hopefully that was clear. And there was a question. Yeah, let's go up.
Oh, there we go.
Okay. So, hey. So Tawana said, can you explain how people are viewed by the LGBT community when they are not fluent in LGBT language or don't practice this daily? Are they considered ignorant? Or is it okay not to feel weird if I or anyone else addresses someone in the LGBT community incorrectly, meaning mislabeled, if not known?
So let's both answer that, and
okay.
I'll be the first. I would like to answer it first. So before Anissa and I got together, I had very limited knowledge on different terminology. For me, it was gay, straight, bi, trans. That's it. Cisgender, a lot of other terminology I was not familiar with. I also didn't, try to, I would just put people in 3 categories. That was it, because that was my level of knowledge, my level of information. So a lot of terms we mentioned today may not be used and may not be used daily, but we want to share them with you guys so that way you are informed. That way, if you were to meet someone, come across anyone, or overhear a conversation, that you could help them out a little bit or respond a little bit, more knowledgeable. So I would say don't be mad at people who are not familiar with the correct terminology. Give them a break. And if you do know the correct terminology, I would say share it with them in a positive way, not in a demeaning way or anything like that, but, a very encouraging and supportive way. Because as Anissa said, with Generation Z, there are a lot of identities that are even growing.
Yes.
That I think in the last year or two, there's been like 2 or 3, was it Z and something? Right. Yeah. So it's a few identities have even, been created recently. So
right.
That's my thought.
And I just think I would like to just start by simply saying that ignoring LGBT people is just rude and disrespectful. And so a lot of people choose to ignore because they feel like they don't understand the terminology. I would say that if you're going to work with people, and this is what I tell every audience I speak to, if you're going to work with people, you're going to work with someone that identifies as LGBTQ+, right? And so being uninformed is basically like building relationships to ask questions. Mm-hmm. So a lot of times people are in the closet simply because people don't ask questions or acknowledge their ability. We live in a heteronormative world. So so that basically means that everything is perceived to be straight. Right? So straight is normal. So if it's a woman, you're asking about the husband, right? You're asking about family. And so I love when my coworkers who don't know a lot would just be like, how is your partner? So using inclusive language starts there. So if you work with people, if you work with patients or clients or customers, remembering that not every woman you see will have a husband and not every man you see will have a wife, that not every family is mom, dad, child, right? Even asking a child about their mom all the time, you're not sure if their mom is in their life. So it's just like that with identities. So I don't think you're being ignorant or rude. I think that we should acknowledge all diverse communities, and we're specifically talking about what it means to be LGBT. But then there's race. Sometimes people are so misinformed about race that they don't talk about it either, and they perpetuate racism every day in their job. So that's a whole nother series that we're going to talk about race and the intersections of that. But you're definitely not ignorant. So I just encourage people who work with community, especially the public, to learn, to be informed, particularly around what it means to be transgender, because a lot of things come with that in terms of policies and procedures in your jobs, right? So what happens if an employee transitions while they're working there? Will they be supported? You know, what happens when you've been calling your coworker Tom, and you've been using he pronouns, and now Tom is Tina, and Tina prefers to be use female pronouns like she, her, right? And so thinking about, what does that mean? Are you prepared to do that? And if you're not prepared, advocate for knowledge and resources and people to come in. And so I travel all around and talk to lots of different organizations about terminology and support for different clients, but really I think just being informed. So thank you for that amazing question. So I think ignorance is one of those things that respect supersedes it. So you might not know like all the things, but if you're just respectful and you realize that this LGBT community is much bigger than a lot of people probably know, just starting there, I know I appreciate it a lot, right? And so I think that family is so much more than just a man, a woman, and a child. So
yeah, and I just want to add too, and we'll get into this a little bit later through the series, but I just want you guys to just be mindful that transgender people, have a very hard way to go. I would say there's many statistics about the suicide, deaths, assaults, especially on transgender African-American women.
Yes.
If you were to just Google it in your personal time, just to see that the number of assaults and deaths and things that are happening are just being swept under the rug. Nothing is happening about it. It's just totally, completely ignored. Mm-hmm. It's kind of like, oh, it's just a transgender African-American woman. Mm-hmm. So that's another reason, part of the mission of why we're doing this series is to create more allies and to save more lives for people throughout the world, because a lot of people aren't informed. They have no idea, and they just don't know. So if you can be supportive, you can defend a person who may be going through something. Also with teenagers, a lot of teenagers, the suicide rate is higher, and homelessness for teenagers who are part of LGBTQ plus. No one's talking about this because there are some families, if their child says they're gay or transgender, that they're putting them out their homes. So the homeless rate, suicide rate for teens and LGBTQ plus is just astronomical now. And that's another reason why we're doing a series, to inform you guys, to encourage you guys, to help provide information that you may not be aware of.
Yeah. And I think that we are not going to go over 25 minutes. So we have 2 minutes left. If people have questions, I don't know if it's,
Wait, did we miss some questions?
I think we did. I'm sorry.
Oh, we did. Okay.
Okay. Sorry, it wasn't. I'm loading, y'all. So just want to make sure we get to them. So thanks, ladies, for answering. I would love to book you for a training. Yes, we would love to do a training. So it's really important to inform and be knowledgeable. Deidre said, when I talk to patients over the phone at work, I can't always identify if they're male or female. Yes, Deidre. What is the proper way to ask their gender without being offensive? Mm-hmm. Oh, thank you for that. So we know that pronouns are like saying he or she. So a lot of times when you see a person, you're not sure, you may not be sure if a person is male or female. Or if you're on the phone with someone, you're not sure. So there is a gender neutral pronoun that is them. And for a lot of people, or them, they, or theirs. So for a lot of people, that seems like uneasy, but let's practice. So you found this notebook in the lobby. Someone left their notebook here.
There.
I should turn their notebook in. They will probably be missing it. This is a singular person's notebook in which that you just called a singular person by they. And they is a neutral pronoun that a lot of people use if they don't necessarily totally identify with being called he or she. And so you can use they, You can use their name, and then you can X their gender. Being open that gender is in terms of being a man or a woman or being transgender. And so thinking about what that is. A lot of forms I see all the time, it'll say gender and it'll say male or female. Male or female or sex, so that's biological sex. So I think the way, if it's a one-on-one conversation, you can say, if you have to X gender as a part of your job, Deidre, you would X what the gender is, and then you X which pronouns do you prefer. Because even if someone identifies possibly as a man, they might prefer they, them pronouns. And then that way you would know how to address them. Hopefully that helped your problem. Tips for getting, that's my email. Tips for getting used to non-binary pronouns. Tips for getting used to it. Tip number 1, and we're going to talk about pronouns more.
So what is non-binary pronouns?
Oh, gosh.
Quickly.
Okay, quickly. Non-binary is basically gender in terms of being a man or a woman, so not identifying as a man or a woman and not necessarily identifying as transgender. So non-binary would be a person who just doesn't feel that they are a man or a woman, or maybe not transgender and identify as non-binary. So thinking about, I just kind of hit on the side. So we're on Instagram Live too, so follow us for some great pictures and tips throughout the week. So that's non-binary. And to get used to using they, them pronouns, you should practice using them, even if you know a person's pronoun is he or she. No one has ever been offended by using they, them pronouns because it's very neutral and it's a great way. So practice. What if someone asks me if I use they, them? Okay, I think we talked about that. Respect, yes, Carla. If they even give us respect of calling us women. Right. So very important. I wanted to end with very important. If a person is transgender and they're a transgender woman, they are a woman. If you take the word transgender away, they're still a woman. If you don't know, you've met people and you didn't know they were trans and you've called them woman or man. And so please be sure to affirm people's identities in a way that they identify, and don't limit people to what's between their legs, what you think you know, or what their sexual identity is. And so thinking about gender, sexual orientation, who you love, and sexuality being 3 different constructs. One is not dependent on the other. So a transgender woman who dates men probably identifies as straight, because any woman that dates men identifies mostly as straight. So thinking about sexual orientation being totally separate than what it means to be transgender, which is a part of your gender. Carla calls patients the night before their surgery. Shout out to that. We're going to talk about healthcare competency in different industries, especially social workers and things like that. Y'all need an hour. Oh, great. So I think it's a lot. So I start off every training and I say, this is a lot. Don't try to digest it all right now, but really sit down with yourself and do a critical self-reflection of where you need to brush up on and what you need to learn.
And to help you guys, we're going to be putting together in the next few weeks a ebook with the terminology that we've used today, just so that you'll have it as your reference. You'll be able to download on our website, as well as we'll put the link in our Facebook. We're serious about this, guys, and we really want you guys to be informed. So don't be afraid to ask questions as well, even for our next episode. If you had a question regarding this topic, feel free to continue the questions after we go live, because we will be responding on the page as well as on our YouTube.
All right, and I wanted to bring, sorry, you're going to kill me, but Shura knows. So Shura and a lot of people use the word guys to refer to groups of people. So I really like to challenge folks on the use of the word guys, because I really think about where the word guys came from and how we can address a full room of people, knowing that we see people that identify probably as a woman and we still say guys. So using general terms like folks or people, or even in classrooms. Oh, I want to do a whole series for my teachers. I'm super excited about the work that I'm doing with the elementary school currently, and working with teachers on gender inclusive classrooms, but using students or scholars or some other word besides boys and girls or guys or you guys. So if you talk to people and you say you guys, just challenge yourself to push past that, because some women, trans women, cis women might not like to be called guys. And I wanted to say thank you to Morris Home is a transgender homeless program, and that information can be found in the comments as well. We're also doing this to become role models and to put ourselves out there to really save a young person's life. So, a teenager or anyone, but mainly youth that are being disowned or kicked out or ostracized from their family because of their LGBTQ identity, please don't hesitate to call us, to message us, to reach out to us. We can provide resources. We should do a resource one too, but we can provide resources so that these teens aren't homeless and they don't turn to drugs and alcohol to escape the love that they are wanting from their families. So if you don't feel equipped to help a young person that really needs it because you don't understand the identity, please don't push them to the side. Please call us. Please use us. This is our purpose. We thank God for allowing us to just have a heart for people. Yes. And we hope that people see that in us, and that's literally what we're doing this for. No fame, no glory, just to save souls and remind folks that God loves them regardless of what their thing is. And so thank you all. I think, yes. Yes. So great. Thanks, y'all. I appreciate the interaction, the participation. Yes, the answer to yes, got you. The answer to your question in the text. So thank you. Just share. I was away this weekend at Create and Change, and if you don't know what Create and Change is the largest national LGBT conference. And I was reminded that it's really hard to find our story in the media. And when I was growing up, I don't know about you, honey, but I didn't know people who looked like us, who were gay, definitely who love God, right, and who were successful entrepreneurs at that, just kind of living our best life, right, and raising our family and trying to not only just exist, but change the world we live in, because you can't sit in your marginalization. You have to do something with the power that you have, and I know we have so much power. Yes. So we're going to talk about coming out. Yes, next week.
Next week. So stay tuned. We did run a little bit over time. We want to respect everyone's time and try to keep it within 30 minutes. But we will be discussing coming out next week, which is a lifelong process. And I can't wait to share with you some of my coming out story and things that I've experienced and other people's experiences that we've discussed with as well. You going to tell your coming out story?
Okay. If you had to describe what it means to come out to you in one word, what would it be?
I would say in one word. Wow. Yeah. I can't do one word. Two word. I would say accepting self. Ooh. Accepting self. Coming out, accepting self. I believe that's where it starts. I'm not going to give it away. She's trying to get me to give y'all some more information. But tune in next Tuesday.
Tuesday?
I'm sorry. It's my birthday next Tuesday, so we won't be live. Maybe we should still go live. I don't know. I think it's my birthday. I would like to keep you guys. We go live on
Thursdays, not Tuesdays.
This is true. I'm messing
She's
up.
She's turning 40, y'all. That's what happened when you about to turn 40.
You get her days up. Today is Thursday. So tune in next Thursday, 7 p.m. Be sure to leave questions, put your posts. We'll be checking the page through the evening, as well as checking the page over the days. So stay tuned. Next week, coming out Thursday,
next Thursday, 7 p.m. So we are going to share this on our Believe Out Word page, on our YouTube, subscribe there. So please share our video. Just if every person that watched today shares this, then the message can continue to be spread. So please ask questions. If you have my phone number, text me, inbox me. Let's keep the conversation going. This is my life purpose. I feel so fulfilled right now, and I really just want to spread the word and live outward. So
yes, believe outward.
So others can do the same. Love y'all. Be blessed.
Have a great night.